So today I'm going to be going through some useful and just sort of fun to play with accessories for the Mamiya RZ67. I've had this for probably about 2 years now, made a video on it, which I'll put in a little card. And yeah, there's some accessories that I've picked up sort of along the way and that I think are either relatively essential for using the camera, as well as some that are really just fun to play with and give you more options in terms of flexibility. So first things first, most of the kits that you'll see for the RZ67 are with the waist level finder, which is great. And the first accessory that I kind of tried to get when I first got the camera was Prism finder. So this is the AE Prism finder. It's worth noting, if you've got the RZ Pro 2 or the Pro 2D, I think, there's a separate metered head. So it will have the incremental shutter speeds in between the main ones, like the shutter speed dial does on the side of the camera. So I've got, as you can see here, there's an exposure lock setting as well as an aperture priority setting, but then I can choose shutter speeds within that, which is good. On top of that, you've got the option to do exposure compensation, which is really nice as well. I mean, the easier way to do exposure compensation with these cameras is to just meter for a different ISO. That's normally the fastest way to do it. But I found that the metering on this is actually very, very accurate. And as you can probably see here, there's a little switch, which if I push that into the middle, so it's on the dot, that will switch between average metering, which is the A, or center metering, or spot metering, which is the S. And then if I want to choose either one of those, I can push it to A or push it to S. I found that leaving it in the middle is normally a good way to go, just because it does such a good job at knowing when a subject is, say, backlit or something like that, that it will automatically change between average for the whole scene and spot for something that's backlit or a particularly bright point of light or something like that. And that's been phenomenal. So I have pretty much just been using that Prism finder continuously since I got it, I think about 6-8 months ago, something like that. It is quite big, which is a bit of a pain. I mean, it will fit in my bag and I can carry it around, but it only just fits in my bag, which when you've been used to the waist level finder for so long, it is big. So it does considerably increase the height of the camera, considering that normally it'd only come up to about here with the waist level finder, and the collapsibility of the waist level finder is important. But this is the equivalent of walking around, obviously with this attached, which doesn't have much weight, but then also having to bring a separate meter. So not having to take this with me and being able to see what I'm metering for or what I'm metering through the camera makes the whole process so much quicker. And usually I'm just out carrying the camera, so I don't really want to do separate light meter readings all the time. So the metered prism is, yeah, quite important. The other thing that I wanted the metered prism for was in connection with the next accessory, which I think is just a fun one. And that is the extension tubes. So what these will do, they're essentially spacers. It's a tube. And what this will do is put the lens further away from the focal plane, which means you will be able to focus even closer than you would be normally. Now, they did make a lens that was specifically designed to work with these, which is the 140mm macro, which I've got, which is incredibly fun to play with. But this will work with any lens that fits the RZ mount. I found that the 65mm f4 when you use both extension tubes, you run the risk of focusing too close, and the minimum focus distance with both extension tubes and the bellows fully extended is pretty much touching the front element, which is very close. And this is where the Prism becomes most useful. So with the Prism attached, you're metering through the lens, so it's metering for what the lens is actually seeing. Now, when you add bellows, you're increasing the distance that the lens is away from the camera, and you get what's called bellows extension. Usually you see that mostly in large format, and you can calculate bellows extension because as the lens moves away, the amount of light that will actually hit the film decreases. So with the metered Prism, it will meter through the lens with the reduced amount of light and give me a meter reading that is accurate with essentially the bellows extension added. So I don't have to add a stop, add 2 stops to compensate for that bellows extension. And that's just so time saving, it makes such a difference. But these, so much fun to use. I mean, even if you've just got a standard lens, it's so much fun to use. A set of these is gonna cost you about £100, I think, at the moment. And they're phenomenal. You can spend so long just getting sort of high quality, very, very close shots with these, and it's amazing. So for anyone that's got an RZ, or if you've got an RB, I would highly recommend getting the extension tubes just to play with, because it changes sort of what you can shoot and how you're going to shoot it, and that makes it really, really fun. The next thing that I'm going to talk about is a tripod. So get a solid tripod. If you're planning to do any sort of long exposures or anything where you want to be using shutter speeds, I'll say about a 60th or a 30th or slower, tripod makes so much difference. And if you've got a crappy tripod, it will let you down. It will not be stable. So this is a Siru N3004X, which is an aluminium tripod, but it goes taller than me if I need it to. And yeah, it's so solid, and it's worth investing because a decent tripod will last you absolutely years, whereas a crappy tripod will last you maybe a couple of years if you're using it regularly, and you end up buying another crappy tripod, and you can quickly spend more on crappy tripods than you would spend on a decent tripod. So just for reference, a good tripod I would say is about £200 plus, and that will last you a significant amount of time. Plus with that you get the option to get different heads for different jobs, things like that, and it just makes your whole life so much easier. So a good tripod, or just a solid tripod, it doesn't have to be sort of a brand new carbon fibre tripod, it can be one of the older tripods. So Manfrotto made some excellent tripods. I think they were 055s, and they were really heavy but very, very solid, and it was very hard to beat them. Stealing a Matt Mirage quote, get a frickin' tripod, because it will make your life so much easier. And I know he's got a video talking about tripods, so I'll leave a card up there talking about that. Check it out, because a good tripod will last you so long, and it's so worth the investment. The next accessory is one that I have only recently started playing with more, and that is flash. So this is a Metz 45 CL4. I have this because it's the easiest to understand flash. I don't have to worry about power because I can basically set it to an ISO range, an aperture range, or an aperture, and then the output power will be right for that set aperture, and that's huge. I mean, I've played with other things in the past, just normal speed lights, but then I'm having to meter separately, and it's not as easy to do. I've recently been borrowing a Godox AD200, which is essentially, it's a speed light and then you can attach a strobe to it, and that will work with their trigger, which means I have a wireless flash. And because the RZ has a hot shoe, the trigger works perfectly fine, and I can adjust power and things like that from the trigger. But actually working out what the right flash power is a bit of a pain, and that's where the METS comes in so useful, because I can just stick it on the side. Yes, I have to plug it into the lens, but it makes it so much easier to actually just know what aperture I need to be on in order to get a correctly exposed picture. And recently I've been playing with it and it's so much fun. So if you are thinking of doing any night photography or anything like that, it's worth playing with. So while I've been talking, hopefully future me has been putting up pictures showing where I've used all these things. But the last one isn't going to have any pictures. The strap. So the RZ is heavy. Carrying it around all day, you will feel it. It's going to hurt your shoulders if you're using a shit strap. And because it has its own little lugs, you need to get a strap either that has these lugs already on, or you need to get a set of lugs separately and then get a strap, and that can be quite expensive. So this is an Optec strap, which loads of people use because they are just so solid, and it's a padded neoprene strap, so it helps reduce the weight, and you can just clip it on, clip it off, and yeah, it's really easy to use. But if you're going to be carrying around the RZ for any long period of time, the strap is kind of essential. So I'd recommend a strap, and the Optec ones are very, very good and surprisingly affordable. I think they're about £20–25. Not 100% sure, don't quote me on that, but about that. So that's a fundamental accessory to have for the RZ, just because it makes life transporting it so much easier. So that was just a quick run through of some useful and some fun accessories to have for the RZ. That also kind of applies for the RB as well. For the RB, we'll use slightly different accessories. So the extension tubes for the RB are specifically for the RB. The straps, I believe the lugs are the same, so they will go between. And the RB also had its own metered prism. And then the last thing that I'm going to suggest is a very useful accessory, is the accessory guide, which I don't have on me at the moment, but I'll put up a picture of it. And it basically is from the instruction manual for the RZ. Now, you can find these online, or you can buy physical copies also online, I believe. And it basically tells you what is compatible with what and what it does. And yeah, they're really useful. So I would highly recommend using that if you are looking for either Mamiya RZ or Mamiya RB accessories, just because it will help you know what's out there to begin with. But yeah, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments, because I do reply to most of them. And then if you enjoyed the video, you can like the video, and if you didn't like the video, you can dislike it. And if you like the video, you can also consider subscribing, which does help. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.